For centuries, the galaxy had whispered of the humans, and their world Earth, a blue and green orb far out in the distant reaches of the universe. They were more myth than reality, a forgotten species lost in the void of time. Their ships once traveled to the stars, but vanished without a trace, leaving only fragmented stories and scattered memories across the galaxy. Their presence was but a shadow of a past age, a time when they had dared to venture into the unknown, only to be silenced by the vastness of the cosmos. No one could say for sure what had happened to them. The elders of the Varnax spoke of them with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The Zoraxians told stories of how humans once crossed the stars with fire in their hearts and fury in their eyes. The Coalition of Stars, the largest alliance of races in the galaxy, had come to accept that the humans were no more their territory, had been mapped, their homeworld lost to time, and their people relegated to the realm of legend. But something stirred deep within the silent expanse of space. Where once humanity had vanished, a signal broke the quiet. It was faint, a whisper that could barely be heard, but to those who knew what to listen for, it carried a message, one that spoke of a species that had not perished but evolved, something new, something dangerous, something that would shake the foundations of the galaxy to its core. The Coalition had no idea what to make of this transmission. No one had expected the humans to return, and yet their ships had reappeared, not with a flare of aggression, but with a calm determination, as if they had never left at all. The leaders of the Coalition believed they had time to prepare a formal greeting, to make contact with the humans, and offer them a place within the collective peaceful alliance that had held the galaxy together for so long. But the humans had other plans. They did not come to parley, nor to bow before the council. They came to make their presence known, to remind the galaxy of who they were and what they had once been. The ships that arrived were like no others. They did not belong to any race in the galaxy. Their technology was old but advanced beyond the understanding of the Coalition ships, the likes of which the galaxy had never seen. And they were not empty. These ships carried not only humans, but something else too, something intangible that filled every corner of the vessel, the burning spirit of a species that had been forgotten for far too long. As the humans approached the first star system within their reach, they did not send out ambassadors or envoys to introduce themselves. They simply arrived and silenced their ships, cutting through the dark expanse of space without ceremony. They did not wait for permission to enter galactic space. They did not ask for approval. They simply claimed it, and in doing so sent a message to every race that had forgotten them, to every species that had believed they were gone. Humanity was not lost. Humanity had returned, and they would not be ignored. The first response from the Coalition was confusion, followed quickly by fear, for the humans did not appear to have any interest in diplomacy. They did not send a fleet to negotiate or discuss terms. They arrived with a purpose, and the galaxy soon began to understand that this time things would be different. The humans had come not as beggars, but as conquerors with a score to settle, and the galaxy would soon learn what it meant to face the full force of humanity's wrath. The first message humanity sent was not one of words but of action. Their ships entered the galactic space with an eerie calm, like the calm before a storm. They did not announce their presence with the usual flair of diplomatic protocols or signals of peaceful intent. They did not broadcast songs or messages of goodwill to the galactic leaders. Instead, they simply arrived, their presence undeniable, their ships cutting through the vast expanse with quiet authority. At first, the galactic races were uncertain what to make of it. They had prepared for the return of humanity with great expectations, hoping for a renewal of ancient bonds, or perhaps a new alliance. Yet they were met with a silence that was unsettling, nothing but the presence of those strange vessels floating in space, as if waiting but for what no one knew. In the heart of the Coalition of Stars, the ruling council convened immediately, unsure of how to respond to the sudden appearance of humanity's ships. The representatives of the various races exchanged uneasy glances as they debated their next move. For all their collective wisdom, they had never expected humanity to return like this, a race that had once been lost to history reappearing out of nowhere without so much as a greeting. The Threxian ambassador was the first to speak. His voice, laced with suspicion and condescension, his people had long been the dominant force in the galaxy, and they had never feared any race Until now, he dismissed the human ships as a fluke, perhaps an isolated group of rogue vessels sent without permission from their homeworld. The Varnak's representative was less sure. He had heard the stories from his ancestors of the fearsome humans and their ruthless ways, but he had dismissed them as legend stories told to scare children. The other races held their tongues, waiting for someone to take charge, but no one could answer what the humans wanted or why they were here. Meanwhile, humanity's ships lingered on the edges of the galactic systems, never crossing into the space of the major powers, never firing a single shot. They simply waited. They did not seem to have any desire for immediate confrontation, nor did they engage in any attempts to communicate. Their message was clear. They were not here to negotiate. They were not here to beg for acceptance. They were here to observe. And observe they did for days. The humans watched the movements of the galactic fleets, the trading lanes, the systems that were rich in resources, and the ones that had been forgotten, abandoned in the outer reaches of space. It was as if they were silently gauging the galaxy, preparing for something, but what it was remained a mystery. The Council of the Coalition eventually sent a delegation to meet with the humans and open a dialogue, but when they arrived at the location where humanity's ships had been, they found nothing but empty space. The human ships had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the lingering feeling of their presence. There was no communication, no response to the Council's attempts at contact, and the galaxy was left in the unsettling silence. Once again, the humans had arrived, but they did not come for pleasantries. They did not come with gifts or even a formal request for peace. They came with a quiet certainty that the galaxy would remember their name, and no one could say what would come next. The message was becoming clearer with each passing moment. Humanity had not returned to join the Galactic Council. Humanity had returned to make their mark, to claim what was theirs, and the rest of the galaxy would soon have to reckon with the full force of their resolve. The galaxy's confusion turned to fear as the humans made their first move, and it was swift and brutal. A sudden surge of ships tore through the outskirts of Coalition space. The ships were like shadows. They moved in perfect synchronization, as if guided by a single will, their engines burning bright and steady as they cut through the dark expanse, leaving no time for the galactic powers to prepare their forces. They had underestimated humanity's ability to strike quickly and decisively. The Coalition's first response was panic. The Threxian Empire and the Varnak's military scrambled their fleets to form a united front against the human incursion. They had no choice but to act together despite their long-standing rivalries. The threat of the humans demanded a unified defense. They feared that if they allowed this invasion to spread unchecked, it would be the beginning of the end for their dominance in the galaxy. But what they did not understand was the depth of humanity's military capability. Humanity had not just returned to settle old scores. They had returned with an army that had spent centuries perfecting the art of war. They had studied the weaknesses of every empire they had faced. They had learned how to adapt to every environment and challenge, and most importantly, they had learned how to fight as one unstoppable force. The human fleet moved with terrifying precision. They did not engage in open battles or grand skirmishes. They struck like a knife in the dark, targeting critical systems and high-value military assets. First, one by one, the Coalition's defenses fell. They disabled command hubs, severed communication lines, and rendered entire fleets useless. With no chance for reinforcements, the enemy forces were scattered and disorganized. The first battle took place on the outer rim of the galactic systems, where a fleet of Varnak's warships had been stationed for routine patrols. The Varnaks had been preparing to strike at a neighboring system. When humanity's fleet appeared without warning, they did not issue a challenge or a threat. They simply struck. When the first Varnak ship detected the incoming human vessels, it was already too late. The Varnak's commanders were unable to react in time as their ships were disabled by advanced weaponry that disabled their engines and weapon systems. Within seconds, the remaining ships fell into disarray as humanity's tactical fleet closed in on their targets, picking them off one by one. The galactic powers watched in disbelief as humanity's ships disabled the most powerful warships they had without a single casualty. The humans fought with ruthless efficiency, each strike calculated with deadly precision, and no mercy given to those who stood in their way. The coalition's diplomatic attempts had already faltered before the first strike, but now it was clear that no negotiation could halt humanity's advance. They were not here to parley, they were here to dominate, and nothing the galaxy's most powerful militaries had could slow them down. The Threxian Empire and the Varnax were forced to retreat, their fleets scattered and their defenses shattered by humanity's sudden and decisive attack. In the wake of their first strike, humanity did not pause to gloat or revel in their victory. They simply withdrew into the depths of space, once again leaving behind nothing but the wreckage of their enemies and the fear they had inspired. The galactic powers were left reeling, unable to comprehend the sheer scale of humanity's power and unwilling to believe that this species, thought lost for so long, had returned with such force. The message humanity sent was clear. They were not here to play by the rules of the galaxy. They would not submit to the old power structures, nor would they follow the will of any one empire. They were here to shape the future of the stars, and no one would stop them from achieving their goals. In the aftermath of humanity's first strike, the galaxy trembled. The once thriving empires, so accustomed to their dominance and superiority, found themselves grappling with an unsettling truth. They were no longer the most powerful force in the galaxy. Humanity, a species believed to be extinct or merely a myth, had returned, and they came not just to survive, but to claim their place in the stars. What began as a whisper, a vague rumor, had erupted into a force so profound that it couldn't be ignored. The Council of the Coalition convened in a hurried emergency meeting, their members divided and fearful. The Threxian Empire, the Varnax, and even the once neutral races were in a state of chaos. The human fleet had not only struck with precision, but they had done so without warning, leaving no time for response. What was even more terrifying was the way they had made their first move, a cold, calculated strike that left no room for diplomacy, no offer of peace. Humanity had made it clear that they had come to take what they believed was theirs. On the other side of the galaxy, humanity's leaders stood resolute. Their victory against the Varnax and the Coalition was just the beginning of a much grander plan. They had not entered this conflict with the same objectives as the other races. Their resolve was born from a long history of fighting against extinction, surviving against overwhelming odds, and finding unity even in the darkest moments. Humanity wasn't just looking to conquer. They were fighting for something deeper, the survival of their identity, their beliefs, and their future. Every victory they claimed on the battlefield was a statement, an assertion that they had not only returned, but that they were here to stay. The human fleet, which had once seemed like a scattered handful of vessels, was now a force to be reckoned with. Its power was not just in the ships or the technology. It was in the spirit of the humans who piloted them. The human soldiers, engineers, and leaders were bound by something far more profound than advanced weapons or strategies. They were driven by a will to overcome, an undying belief that no matter how many times they were pushed to the edge, they would never fall. Humanity's resolve was not just evident in their military strategy, but in how they treated the galaxy itself. As they pressed further into coalition territory, they didn't simply crush opposition. They offered something different. On planets that had been devastated by war, on worlds where entire populations had been enslaved by the Threxian Empire, humanity brought something unexpected: hope. They liberated entire systems, helping rebuild what had been destroyed and offering the freedom that many had forgotten was possible. This act of compassion was not born out of weakness, but rather the strength of a species who had known suffering and who refused to let others endure the same fate. For the first time in generations, races that had once been oppressed, broken, and divided saw something in humanity that had been lost in the stars: unity. The people of these planets rallied behind humanity's banner, not out of fear, but because they believed in the cause. They believed in a new future, one where freedom and justice could finally reign. The more the humans advanced, the more they proved that their strength was not just in their military might, but in their resolve to protect what mattered most. The Coalition began to see that humanity's return wasn't a random event. It was the beginning of a revolution. They were not just another empire seeking to rule the stars. They were a force that could change the very fabric of the galaxy. And as they gathered allies and freed entire civilizations, the galactic powers began to realize that their old way of life was quickly fading, replaced by something new and unstoppable. Humanity had come not just to conquer, but to rebuild the galaxy in its own image, a place where freedom and determination would reign above all else. And nothing, not even the largest empires in the galaxy, could stand in their way. As humanity's influence spread like wildfire across the galaxy, the Threxian Empire, the most fearsome military power the stars had ever known, found itself on the brink of panic. For centuries, the empire had ruled through sheer force, crushing rebellions with ease and bending entire civilizations to its will. Their fleet was unmatched, their soldiers renowned for their brutality, and their leaders feared for their cold, calculating precision. Yet now, for the first time in history, they found themselves facing an enemy that was unlike any other they had ever encountered. The Threxian High Command convened in secret, their minds racing as they scrambled to understand the nature of the threat before them. They could no longer dismiss the humans as an isolated faction or a mere nuisance. Humanity had struck their allies, the Varnacs, with devastating efficiency, leaving nothing but shattered fleets in their wake. And now, the human forces were rapidly growing, their fleets expanding faster than anyone had anticipated, rallying previously neutral worlds to their cause. The galaxy was watching, and the Threxians could feel the ground shifting beneath their feet. Their response was swift. A full-scale mobilization of the Empire's greatest warships, led by the infamous warlord Supreme Commander Vrax, was ordered. The Threxians believed they could put an end to this human uprising before it could gain any more ground. Vrax, known for his ruthlessness and cunning, was the Empire's greatest military mind. He had conquered dozens of star systems, wiped out entire civilizations, and never failed to bring victory to the Threxian banner. But even he knew that this was different. The humans were not like any race he had ever encountered. Their tactics were unconventional, unpredictable, and most of all, effective. The Threxian fleets, vast and heavily armed, launched their assault on a human-controlled sector, believing that they could crush the resistance and reclaim the territories. They were confident that their superior numbers and firepower would obliterate the human forces in a matter of hours. But as they approached their target, they were met with a horrifying sight. The humans had anticipated the attack. Their fleets were waiting, hidden in plain sight, camouflaged among asteroid fields and scattered debris. As the Threxian ships moved into range, a hail of projectiles erupted from the darkness. Plasma bursts, torpedoes, and electromagnetic pulses ripped through the air, tearing apart the Empire's battle cruisers with shocking precision. The Threxians were caught off guard, their ships crippled before they could even return fire. Supreme Commander Vrax, watching the destruction unfold from his flagship, felt the stirrings of something unfamiliar. Fear. He had never been afraid of any enemy, and certainly not of the humans. But their strike was unlike anything he had ever witnessed. They had used the terrain of space itself as a weapon, bending it to their advantage in ways that defied logic. The Threxian ships began to fall apart under the relentless assault, their once legendary hulls buckling under the weight of human ingenuity. Vrax ordered a retreat, but it was too late. Humanity's forces descended upon the Threxian fleet like a swarm, picking apart their stragglers, disabling their engines, and boarding their ships with lethal efficiency. The human soldiers fought with an intensity and unity that even the Threxians could not match. The battle was over in hours, the Threxian fleet in tatters, and their forces scattered to the stars. The human fleet did not celebrate their victory. They did not waste time with displays of triumph or fanfare. They simply moved forward, continuing their campaign as though the battle had been just another step toward their ultimate goal. Humanity had no interest in conquering for the sake of conquest. Their victory over the Threxians was not about dominance. It was about proving a point. They would not be intimidated. They would not be overrun. They were here to stay. The Threxian Empire, once thought to be the unassailable ruler of the stars, now found itself on the defensive. Vrax's reputation had been shattered, his forces humiliated in the face of humanity's resolve. The galaxy watched as the balance of power shifted, and the once dominant empire began to crumble. The Threxians were not just losing ground, they were losing their hold on the future itself. Humanity's message was clear. The old empires had ruled the stars for far too long. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the forefront of that change. There would be no turning back. The galaxy was no longer theirs to command. It was time for a new order. The fall of the Threxian Empire was just the beginning. Once the humans had struck their blow, other empires, once proud and secure in their dominance, began to feel the tremors of change. In every corner of the galaxy, whispers began to rise, whispers of a new order led by humanity. The coalition of stars, once a symbol of unity among various races, started to unravel as internal tensions erupted. The sudden appearance of humanity, coupled with their swift victories, was forcing the galaxy to re-examine its long-held beliefs about power, diplomacy, and survival. As the Threxians retreated into their strongholds, the Varnax too began to question their position. For decades they had ruled through alliances, using their advanced technologies and vast resources to maintain control over vast swaths of the galaxy. But humanity's unexpected rise had unsettled their delicate balance. The Varnax were powerful, yes, but they were now painfully aware that their dominance was fragile, easily shattered by the sheer will of the humans. And so, in a move born of both desperation and calculation, the Varnax sought to strike first, hoping to eliminate the threat before it could spread further. But humanity was always one step ahead. The human fleets, with their unmatched coordination and precision, had already infiltrated key Varnax systems, setting traps and sabotaging their infrastructure. The Varnax, in their arrogance, believed they could outsmart humanity with their superior technology, but they did not understand the true nature of the human advantage. It was not in their weapons or ships. It was in their adaptability, their unyielding resolve, and their ability to unite even the most fractured of forces for a common cause. One by one, the Varnax systems fell. Humanity liberated worlds that had long been under the yoke of the Varnax, offering them a chance at freedom. Entire populations, once subjugated, rallied behind the humans, joining their ranks in the struggle for a galaxy free from tyranny. The once proud Varnax Empire, now forced to fight on multiple fronts, began to crumble under the weight of their own hubris. Meanwhile, the Galactic Rebellion was gaining momentum. Former colonies and oppressed races who had long suffered under the rule of the empires began to rise up. They were tired of the old ways, of being controlled, of living under the thumb of corrupt governments. Humanity's success had shown them that there was an alternative, a new path forward. The rebellion was not just a political movement. It was a call to arms for every race that had been left behind by the galaxy's ruling powers. The humans had ignited a fire that could not be put out, and now the galaxy was a tinderbox ready to explode. The rebellion's leader, General Alira Kane, a human who had once fought in the shadows, became the figurehead of the movement. She was a symbol of resilience, of defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. Her charisma and unwavering belief in humanity's mission had drawn countless races to her cause. Under her leadership, the rebellion began to strike at the heart of the old empires, launching coordinated attacks on their capital worlds and military strongholds. No longer was humanity fighting for survival. They were fighting for the freedom of every sentient being in the galaxy. The Galactic Council, desperate to preserve the old order, attempted to negotiate with humanity, offering terms of peace. But it was too late. The humans had already made their intentions clear. The galaxy would not be ruled by the few, the powerful, the old empires. It would be ruled by the many, by those who dared to challenge the status quo and fight for a future free from oppression. Humanity's strength was not in their ships or their weapons. It was in their will to fight, in their refusal to bow to tyranny, and in their ability to inspire others to stand beside them. The old empires, realizing too late that they could no longer control the galaxy, began to fracture. The once united coalition of stars was now a shadow of its former self, its members divided and vulnerable. The Varnax were on the verge of collapse, and the Threxian Empire, once a beacon of power, was now a crippled giant struggling to survive. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading the charge. The rebellion had become a force too powerful to ignore. And the old empires knew that if they did not bend to the will of the people, they would be swept aside like the dust of history. There would be no return to the old ways, no going back to the past. The future had been written, and it was being shaped by the hands of those who had once been forgotten. The galaxy trembled, not from the power of the old empires, but from the unstoppable force of a united humanity. As the Galactic rebellion spread like wildfire, the old powers, once so certain of their dominance, found themselves grasping at straws. The coalition, once a bastion of peace and cooperation among the stars, now faced an existential crisis. Humanity's rise was not just a military challenge. It was a revolution of ideals, a profound shift in the very fabric of the galaxy. The rebellion wasn't only about the fall of empires. It was about the creation of something new, something that threatened the very foundation of the galactic order. The once unified council of the coalition now found itself fractured, with member races openly questioning whether the old way of life was worth preserving. The idea of a galaxy ruled by a select few, an elite group of races with their power and privilege unchallenged, was becoming increasingly untenable. Humanity, with its core belief in equality and freedom, had ignited a spark that could not be extinguished. The galaxy was no longer content to serve the whims of the few. In the heart of the rebellion, General Alira Kane, whose leadership had inspired countless worlds to join the cause, found herself faced with an unexpected challenge. While the rebellion had gained momentum, and more systems rallied to humanity's banner each day, the question of what came next loomed large. They were no longer simply fighting for survival. They were fighting to shape the future. And that future would require more than just military victory. It would require vision, unity, and above all, the ability to create a new order, one that would ensure freedom, equality, and justice for every being in the galaxy. The Rebellion's Council, made up of representatives from all races that had joined humanity's cause, met in a hidden base deep within the uncharted sectors. Their discussions were urgent, for while they had seen great victories, the hard work had just begun. What would the galaxy look like after the fall of the old empires? Would humanity, in its newfound power, risk becoming what it had once fought against, the very thing it had rebelled against all those years ago? Alira Kane stood before the council, her eyes unwavering. The weight of leadership had grown heavier, but her resolve was stronger than ever. "We are not here to conquer," she said, her voice resonating with power. "We are here to build. We are here to forge a galaxy where no race, no species, has to bow to another. We are the architects of the new order, and it must be one that lasts, one that is not based on fear or oppression." Her words, spoken with the weight of all humanity's past struggles, rang true. And yet, not everyone in the rebellion agreed with her vision. Some of the more militant factions, emboldened by the rebellion's success, argued that they should seize the remnants of the old empires and impose their rule by force. The Threxian Empire, though fractured and weakened, still had its loyalists, still had resources and weapons at its disposal. There were those within the rebellion who believed that the only way to ensure peace was through dominance. But Alira's vision was different. She had witnessed the horrors of unchecked power firsthand, had seen what tyranny and dictatorship did to innocent people. Humanity's strength, she knew, lay not in their ability to dominate, but in their ability to unite disparate forces for a common good. The galaxy needed not another empire, but a system of governance that allowed all races, all people, to share in its future. As the council debated, the clock was ticking. The remnants of the old empires, the Varnacs, the Threxians, and others, were still regrouping, licking their wounds, and planning their next moves. They would not fade into history without a fight. But humanity's influence was growing. The liberated worlds were already organizing, forming alliances, and governing bodies. New trade routes were opening, and the flow of knowledge and resources was beginning to shift toward the rebellion's ideals of freedom and equality. A great debate raged among the council members, but in the end, it was the human presence, the spirit of their unity and resilience, that carried the day. The galaxy needed not another power-hungry empire, but a confederation of free worlds, each with a say in its future. The vision for the new order was clear: a galactic federation of equals, bound not by fear, but by mutual respect, shared interests, and the drive for peace and prosperity. The rebellion's final objective was not just the destruction of the old powers, it was the creation of something entirely new. A galaxy where every race, from the smallest to the largest, could thrive without the shackles of oppression. Humanity, now leading this great change, understood the challenges ahead. But they were undeterred. They would not settle for just victory in battle. They would fight for a lasting peace. The galaxy was about to enter a new age, one where the sun of tyranny was setting, and the dawn of freedom had finally arrived, and humanity would lead the way. The galaxy was on the cusp of transformation. The old powers, once arrogant in their dominance, were now reduced to shadows of their former selves, their influence waning with every passing day. The fall of the Threxian Empire, the collapse of the Varnacs regime, and the dissolution of the once unified coalition had created a void, one that humanity was determined to fill with a vision of unity and peace. This vision was not without its challenges, but humanity's resolve had proven stronger than any force the galaxy had thrown at them. In the heart of the rebellion's newly formed council, representatives from the liberated worlds gathered to finalize the new blueprint for the galaxy's future. General Alira Kane, whose leadership had been the spark for the revolution, stood at the forefront, her eyes sharp, her voice calm but filled with unshakable certainty. The time had come to chart a course forward, a course where no one species would dominate the others, and where power was shared equally among all races. "We are not here to rule over anyone," Alira said as the council assembled, "but to ensure that the people of the galaxy rule themselves together. This is a federation, not an empire. We will stand united, but we will also respect the autonomy of each world. We will ensure that every voice is heard, and that the lessons of the past are never forgotten. A galaxy of equals, where freedom, peace, and opportunity are the birthright of every sentient being." Her words resonated with the council members, many of whom had once been oppressed under the rule of the old empires. The atmosphere was thick with hope, but there was also an undeniable sense of responsibility. The galaxy was watching them. The decisions they made now would shape the future for generations to come. Despite the success of the rebellion, there were still remnants of the old power structures that posed a threat. The Threxian loyalists, scattered and regrouping, still had a stronghold on several key systems. The Varnacs, though defeated, maintained a military presence in parts of the galaxy, but humanity's ability to unite and inspire had already turned the tide. Now the task was to rebuild, to create the foundation for a new galaxy where old grievances could be put aside in favor of cooperation. Alira knew that rebuilding the galaxy wouldn't be easy. There would be tensions, even among the liberated worlds. But she also knew that the alternative, allowing the galaxy to fall back into chaos, where the powerful would once again oppress the weak, was not an option. Humanity had fought for freedom for so long that they would not allow others to fall into the same trap they had once faced. The new Galactic Federation began to take shape quickly. A provisional capital was established on a neutral world, a symbol of the unity that humanity had brought to the galaxy. From there, representatives from every corner of the galaxy, each race, each species, gathered to form a new council, a council where no one race would dominate. The voices of the smaller civilizations, the ones that had been overlooked or enslaved for centuries, were finally being heard. In the days that followed, the first free elections were held. Leaders from across the galaxy were chosen based on merit, not bloodline, not military strength, but the strength of their ideas and their commitment to the new order. For the first time in galactic history, power was being shared, not hoarded. The old aristocracies, the brutal warlords, and the corrupt factions that had once ruled with an iron fist were left behind in the dust of history. Humanity's strength had never been in their numbers or their technology. It had always been in their ability to unite, to come together for a common cause. Their victory wasn't just on the battlefield. It was in their determination to build a better future for all. And as the first representatives of the new Federation took their oaths, a sense of optimism filled the galaxy. The old order had fallen, and the new age was just beginning. The wars were not over. There would still be challenges to face, remnants of the old powers to confront. But humanity had proven that a better galaxy was possible, one where the people, not the empires, held the power. The fight for freedom had not only reshaped the stars, it had redefined what it meant to be part of the galaxy. No longer were they subjects to an oppressive rule. Now they were citizens of a unified free galaxy, working together to build something greater than any one empire had ever dreamed. Humanity had not only settled the score, they had reshaped the future. And the galaxy, once divided and oppressed, had found a new hope in the unity and resolve of the human spirit.